I never imagined that a simple curiosity would change my life forever. It all started on a quiet Thursday evening when I was scrolling through my social media feed, half asleep on my couch. There it was, an ad for a hypnotist promising to unlock your hidden potential and embrace your true self. Normally, I would scroll past these things, laugh at the cheesy graphics, and forget about them. But something about it caught my attention that night. Maybe it was the soft, calming voice in the video, or maybe it was just the stress of the week getting to me. I don't know what it was, but for reasons I can't explain, I felt drawn in. The next thing I knew, I had booked a session. I told myself it was just for fun, just a harmless experience, nothing more. I wasn't expecting life-altering changes, and certainly not the kind that would sneak into my mind and body while I was so vulnerable. I remember walking into her office. The hypnotist, a woman with an uncanny presence, exuded this calm confidence that made the room feel warmer, almost inviting. Her office smelled faintly of lavender, and the soft lighting made every corner feel safe. She greeted me with a gentle smile, her eyes piercing yet comforting, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I immediately felt I could trust her. The session began innocuously, with her guiding me to relax, to breathe deeply, to let go of tension I didn't even realize I was holding. Her voice was soft but commanding, like waves pulling me further and further into a haze. I felt weightless, my thoughts floating somewhere distant as I surrendered to her instructions. Then she asked me to visualize myself differently, not as who I was, but as someone lighter, softer, someone who could care for others with a tenderness I didn't know I had. It was a strange request, but I complied, mesmerized by the way her words wrapped around my consciousness. By the end of the session, I felt different. Not in a dramatic, obvious way at first, just subtle. A gentle warmth in my chest, a softening in my posture, a shift in my thoughts. I thought it was just the lingering effect of relaxation, but the first hint of change came the next morning. I woke up feeling strangely, aware of my appearance. My face looked softer in the mirror. My hair seemed shinier, smoother. My voice when I spoke aloud sounded higher, lighter. At first, I laughed it off, assuming it was just a dream's trickery or sleep affecting my perception. But as I got out of bed and looked at my reflection, I noticed something more. My body felt different, slimmer, gentler, almost delicate. Panic surged through me, quickly replaced by a sense of curiosity I couldn't resist. The real shock came when I received the first call from her, the hypnotist herself. She asked casually how I was feeling, and I found myself answering softly, instinctively, almost in a way I had never spoken before. She chuckled warmly and mentioned, in passing, that the session had opened up something in me, something that might grow over the next few days. I thought she was just speaking metaphorically, but soon it became impossible to deny. I started noticing subtle urges, tiny shifts in my wardrobe preferences. My jeans felt tight, my t-shirts uncomfortably rough. I found myself gravitating towards softer fabrics, lighter colors, more feminine shapes, and it wasn't just comfort, it was a longing, a need. By the end of the week, it escalated. My hands were softer, my fingers more graceful, my movements more fluid. I caught myself in the mirror multiple times, studying the changes as if I were seeing someone else entirely. My mind began to replay images of a life I had never lived, a version of myself that was tender, nurturing, and yes, undeniably feminine. It terrified me, but there was also a strange thrill. The hypnotist's words echoed in my mind, gentle and commanding, "You are free to explore. You are free to care. You are free to become her." And then the first real test came. My neighbor's cat had been injured, and without thinking, I offered to care for it. Feeding, cleaning, comforting, it was instinctive. I realized that nurturing didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt like who I was becoming. The next day, I found myself researching uniforms, specifically nursing attire, fascinated by the idea of serving, helping, and being seen as delicate, attentive, precise. It felt natural, almost necessary, not just a passing whim. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just changing mentally, I was on a path to becoming her, the pretty little nurse she had hinted at, without me even realizing it yet. I tried to fight it, of course. I tried to assert my old self, my masculine routines, my old wardrobe, my old voice. But every time, a strange tension arose, an invisible resistance I couldn't push through. Even my friends noticed subtle changes. My gestures, my way of speaking, my laughter. I felt a mixture of shame and fascination, guilt and desire, all tangled together. I knew that if anyone ever found out, it would shock them, maybe even scare them. But I couldn't stop the transformation. It was happening inside me, slowly, irresistibly, like water carving a canyon over time. And then came the day I met her again, the hypnotist. She smiled knowingly as I entered the office, and I felt a strange relief. There was no judgment, only acceptance, encouragement even. She asked me how I felt, and I admitted, almost whispering, that I was terrified and curious all at once. She nodded, understanding completely, and then she spoke words that would cement the change. You are ready to embrace her fully. You are ready to serve, to care, to be seen as she wants you to be. The rest will follow naturally. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but those words planted the seed that would grow into something undeniable, a new identity, delicate and caring, yet powerful in its authenticity. The next few days felt like living in a strange, surreal dream. Every morning I woke up, I felt smaller somehow, not physically in a way anyone could measure, but in posture, in the way I moved through the world. My shoulders sloped differently, my steps had a rhythm that wasn't my own, my hands instinctively moved to smooth my hair or adjust my clothes. My reflection in the mirror no longer looked like me. It looked like a version of me I barely recognized but was already growing fond of. My own eyes stared back with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. I tried to carry on with my old routines, but it became impossible. Even simple tasks felt wrong. Brushing my teeth, combing my hair, picking out jeans or shirts, they all felt foreign. Instead, I found myself reaching for softer fabrics, pastel colors, skirts I had never considered wearing, and blouses that hugged my shoulders just right. The sensation of putting on these clothes felt intoxicating. There was an undeniable thrill in the way my body moved when I wore them, subtle but powerful, and with every reflection I caught in windows or mirrors, I was reminded that this wasn't a temporary phase, it was becoming me. And then came the uniform. I hadn't planned for this. One afternoon, while wandering through a local boutique, I found it, a crisp, pristine nurse's outfit. The fabric was soft, yet structured, hugging the right curves while leaving room to move. When I held it against my body, my chest tightened, not in panic, but in longing. Something inside me ached with a desire to wear it, to step into this persona fully. I knew it was more than just clothing. It was a statement. It was me stepping into a new world, a new identity, and it terrified me, but it also thrilled me beyond words. That evening, alone in my apartment, I unwrapped the uniform and carefully slid it on. The moment the fabric touched my skin, I felt right. My movements became instinctively graceful, my posture softened. My voice even changed as I spoke aloud to myself in the mirror. "You're ready," I whispered, almost afraid to hear my own words. My reflection smiled back, delicate and composed, with eyes full of a strange mixture of vulnerability and courage. I couldn't deny it any longer. I was becoming her, the pretty little nurse the hypnotist had promised, and part of me wanted nothing more than to embrace it completely. The next day, I tried to go about normal life, but the transformation was not just in appearance, it was in behavior, in instinct. I found myself walking slower, noticing small details I never cared about before. I complimented strangers without thinking, my tone soft, encouraging, and almost feminine. I instinctively adjusted the way I held my hands, how I tilted my head, the subtle way I smiled. Everything about me was changing, slowly but unmistakably, and I couldn't stop it. Then came my first real challenge. My neighbor, Mrs. Allen, an elderly woman who had always relied on me to help with small chores, called me over. Her voice trembled over the phone, hinting at a fall she had taken earlier that morning. I didn't hesitate. Without thinking, I ran over, uniform on, hair carefully arranged, posture perfect. Seeing me, she blinked, a small smile forming. "Oh, you look so different," she said softly. I froze for a moment, panic rising, but then something inside me relaxed. I realized I didn't care what she thought. What mattered was her comfort, her care, her safety, and I found myself instinctively taking her hand, helping her to a chair, gently checking her arm for bruises. The nurse inside me had awakened fully, and with it came a sense of purpose I had never felt before. Over the next week, I found that I could not separate myself from this new identity. Even when alone, I practiced walking with a gentle sway, speaking softly, smiling delicately at my own reflection. I experimented with my hair, trying soft curls, brushing it until it gleamed. Makeup, something I had never considered before, suddenly fascinated me. I would spend hours learning, perfecting subtle touches that enhanced my delicate features without drawing attention. Each time I looked in the mirror, I felt both shock and wonder. How had this happened to me? Was it really hypnosis, or had I been carrying this hidden self inside all along, waiting for the right moment to emerge? The hypnotist's words replayed in my mind constantly. You are free to become her. You are free to serve, to care, to be seen as she wants you to be. And I realized that I craved it, not just the appearance, but the essence of it. Caring for others, being attentive, being delicate and graceful, it wasn't a costume anymore. It was who I was becoming. Even when the world outside expected my old self, I found subtle ways to embody her. Soft gestures, gentle tones, careful attention to details others overlooked. But there was fear too. Fear of discovery, fear of rejection, fear of being judged for embracing a side of myself I had always kept hidden. Every interaction with friends, co-workers, or family carried a small tension. What if they noticed? What if they laughed, or worse, thought I had lost my mind? Yet, alongside the fear, there was an undeniable thrill. The excitement of stepping into a role that felt inherently mine, of exploring a side of myself I had never dared acknowledge. And then the moment of truth arrived. The hypnotist asked me to attend a small session at her office, but this time fully dressed as her pretty little nurse. My heart raced, panic and anticipation intertwined. Would I feel foolish? Would I break down under the intensity of the experience? When I arrived, she greeted me with a knowing smile, calm and commanding, and I felt a rush of relief. She guided me to a mirror and told me to look closely, to see the transformation not as a loss of my old self, but as the emergence of someone entirely new, someone capable of love, care, and gentleness beyond anything I had known. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully see her, the nurse, the delicate, attentive, beautiful version of me that had been waiting all along. And as I gazed into the mirror, tears pricked my eyes. It wasn't just the clothing, the posture, or the voice. It was the essence of who I had become, nurtured by her guidance, shaped by her words, and embraced fully by my own courage. Life after that session became a delicate balancing act. Every day, I felt more like her, graceful, gentle, attentive, but the outside world was still expecting my old self. Each morning, I would stare into the mirror, adjust my uniform, smooth my hair, and whisper to myself, "This is who you are now." Be her fully, but carefully. And each day, it became harder to suppress the urges to move, speak, and act as the person I was becoming. The hypnotist had warned me this wouldn't be easy. She said that change of this kind comes with both exhilaration and resistance, and she was right. Some days, I woke up feeling torn. I wanted to step into the world fully as her, but I also feared ridicule, misunderstanding, and the judgment of people who didn't know the truth. The tension gnawed at me constantly. At work, I had to maintain my old persona, masking the delicate, nurturing instincts that now flowed naturally within me. Even simple gestures, touching my hair, the way I smiled, the softness in my voice, had to be carefully restrained. And then there was the emotional side. My relationships, my friendships, even casual encounters, became complicated. I found myself craving attention in subtle ways, wanting to be noticed, appreciated, and cared for, not in a selfish way, but because her persona thrived on connection. It was a strange, almost overwhelming desire to nurture, to help, and to serve, yet it came with vulnerability. Every compliment, every glance, felt amplified, resonating deeply within me, and leaving me simultaneously elated and exposed. One evening, I received a call from the hypnotist, inviting me to attend a group session with others who were exploring similar transformations. My heart raced at the thought, excited, terrified, curious. When I arrived, I found myself among people who were already comfortable in their own shifts, their confidence shining. Seeing them, so unapologetically themselves, was both inspiring and frightening. Could I ever be that confident, that open? Could I truly embrace her without fear? The session began gently. The hypnotist guided us through exercises of posture, speech, and care-focused behaviors. I noticed something remarkable. Each time I spoke softly, adjusted my movements, or helped someone with small tasks, I felt an electric thrill of authenticity. It was as if my soul recognized itself in the gestures, the voice, the soft care I could give. By the end of the session, I realized something profound. This wasn't about pretending or hiding. It was about discovering a version of me that had been dormant, waiting for permission to emerge. Returning home, I felt changed. That night, I stood in front of my mirror longer than usual, adjusting my uniform, curling my hair, applying the faintest touch of makeup. I allowed myself to fully inhabit her, to move and speak exactly as she would. There was fear, yes, but it was balanced by an intoxicating sense of rightness. For the first time, I felt whole in a way I never had before. But life, as always, had its complications. My neighbor, Mrs. Allen, had recovered from her minor injury, but she noticed the subtle changes in me. One afternoon, she commented softly, "You've become different. More graceful, more gentle. It suits you." My heart raced. Did she see me fully? Could she see through the surface and recognize the transformation? I smiled carefully, trying to downplay it. "Thank you," I said softly, hiding the storm of emotions inside. Her words lingered in my mind long after she left, a mix of validation and anxiety. Then came an unexpected test of courage. A close friend, someone I had known for years, came over for coffee. Naturally, I greeted them in her persona. Soft voice, delicate posture, hands adjusting my uniform as I moved. Their eyes widened slightly, but they didn't comment. The conversation flowed, but I felt hyper-aware of every gesture, every tone, fearing that any slip might reveal the full extent of the transformation. That night, I collapsed into my bed, exhausted, heart pounding. It was exhilarating to be her, but the mental strain of concealing her from the world was growing as the weeks passed, the transformation deepened. My body had softened even more, my hair glimmered in ways that drew attention without effort, and my voice now carried an inherent warmth and delicacy. I caught myself humming softly while preparing meals, straightening my uniform even when no one was watching, and instinctively checking on others around me, offering help before being asked. The line between who I had been and who I had become blurred until it felt meaningless. She was no longer a persona. I was her, fully and completely, inside and out. One afternoon, the hypnotist called me for a final session. She spoke gently, "You've come far. But now comes the most important part. Fully embracing her, not just in appearance, but in essence. You must live as her, without fear or hesitation, and the rest of the world will adjust to the truth of you." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Could I truly do that? Could I step into the world, fully herself, without hiding, without pretending? She smiled knowingly, as if she could read my deepest fears, and added, "You are ready. You already are." That night, I stood in front of my mirror longer than ever before. I adjusted my uniform one final time, smoothing every crease, curling my hair just so, and looked into my own eyes. For the first time, I didn't see conflict. I didn't see fear. I saw someone real, someone delicate, attentive, nurturing, and undeniably herself. The reflection smiled back with quiet confidence, and I whispered, "I am ready." And in that moment, I truly believed it. The days that followed felt like a delicate awakening. I walked through the city differently now, each step measured, each movement flowing with a subtle grace I had never possessed before. People noticed, of course. Some with curiosity, others with admiration, and a few with barely concealed surprise. I had learned to meet their eyes with a quiet confidence, my voice soft but steady, my gestures calm and deliberate. It was as if I carried an invisible shield, a fragile strength that came from knowing exactly who I was, even if the world was still learning to recognize her. At work, I started integrating small changes. I adjusted my desk, keeping everything neat and orderly. I offered help to colleagues, anticipating needs before they were spoken. My voice carried warmth, my presence invited conversation, and slowly, subtly, people began to respond differently. There was respect, yes, but more than that, a recognition of care, attention, and authenticity. And with each interaction, I felt the pull of her persona grow stronger, more natural. I no longer needed to force it. She simply was, in every gesture, every word, every thought. Home became my sanctuary. Each morning, I would dress carefully in her uniform, style my hair with gentle curls, and look in the mirror, fully present as her. Makeup became a ritual, subtle touches that highlighted the delicate features I had always longed to embrace. The reflection that greeted me each day no longer provoked panic or disbelief. Instead, it brought quiet joy, a sense of belonging that had eluded me my entire life. For the first time, I felt complete. But with completion came responsibility. Her persona wasn't just about appearance, it was about attitude, empathy, and presence. I had to navigate the world carefully, balancing authenticity with discretion, openness with boundaries. Every encounter became an opportunity to nurture, to care, to embody the gentle strength I had discovered. Sometimes it was exhausting, a constant exercise of awareness, but it was also exhilarating, deeply fulfilling, and undeniably mine. One evening, Mrs. Allen called again. She had always been perceptive, and now she sounded hesitant, almost tentative. "I wanted to tell you, you've changed," she said softly. My heart thumped. "Changed?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. "You're different, in the best way. There's a calmness, a care about you that I can feel. I just wanted you to know that it's beautiful." Her words hit me with a rush of warmth, and I realized something profound. Her recognition, her acceptance, validated the journey I had taken, and the courage I had summoned to embrace her fully. Family and friends were a different story. Some adjusted slowly, watching me move through the world with increasing grace and confidence. Others needed time, their questions cautious, their judgments tempered by the undeniable authenticity in every gesture, every word. And I learned patience. Acceptance wasn't just for me. It was for them too, for their ability to witness my transformation without fear, and for me to continue living authentically without hiding. And then came a quiet moment of introspection. Sitting alone in my apartment one evening, I allowed myself to reflect on the journey. The hypnotist's initial session, the subtle shifts that had begun in private, the growing urges, the uniforms, the nurturing instincts, the mirrors, and the rituals. Each step, each moment of uncertainty, each flash of fear, had been necessary. They had led me here, to a place where I could inhabit her fully without shame or hesitation, where the reflection staring back at me was not foreign but wholly my own. It was in that moment I understood the truth of the hypnotist's promise. Hypnosis hadn't forced the transformation, it had awakened it. It had pulled out a hidden facet of my soul that had longed to be expressed, nurtured, and accepted. And now, as her, I carried not just a delicate exterior but a profound inner strength. I was attentive, compassionate, graceful, and unafraid. I was free to care, to serve, to be herself fully, and to let the world see it, piece by piece. In the weeks that followed, I embraced every opportunity to embody her. I volunteered at local clinics, offering assistance to patients who needed comfort. I helped neighbors, guided friends, and even strangers found solace in my quiet presence. Each act reinforced the bond between who I had become and the world around me. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was living fully in a form that felt natural, right, and deeply fulfilling. And yet, the most profound moment came in the quiet of my own reflection. One night, after a long day of caring and helping, I stood before the mirror, hair cascading softly over my shoulders, uniform crisp and neat, posture perfect, and whispered, "You are her. You are real. You are enough." And for the first time in my life, I believed it completely. There was no fear, no hesitation, no shame, only acceptance, pride, and the deep, unshakable joy of being fully herself. The transformation had been long, challenging, and sometimes frightening, but it had also been beautiful, illuminating, and utterly liberating. Hypnosis had unlocked something I had always carried inside, something tender, delicate, and attentive. It had shown me that authenticity is more than appearance, it is intention, care, courage, and self-acceptance. And now, as her pretty little nurse, I could live each day with the quiet confidence and gentle grace that I had once only dreamed of. Life wasn't perfect. There were still moments of doubt, fear, and hesitation, but I had learned to meet them with patience, resilience, and the calm certainty of knowing who I truly was. And every morning, as I adjusted my uniform, smoothed my hair, and gazed into the mirror, I was reminded that transformation isn't about losing yourself. It's about discovering the self you were always meant to be. And in that discovery, I found freedom, courage, and a quiet, enduring joy that would carry me forward, always.